Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Opinions, and we are back, and I am so pleased that this week we are drinking what I consider to be normal beer, mate.
And by that you just mean no sours, don't you?
I do basically just mean no sours, after the last show.
Although, shall I introduce the name of the beer that we are drinking now, though? When you say normal beer, a few years ago, if someone said to you, "Can I have a pint of Lemondrop, please?"
Well, yeah, you wouldn't really know what you was going to get, would you?
So we're showcasing some beers from Cheshire Brewhouse, which have been very kindly sent down to us. In particular, their limited edition single hop series. And the first beer we've got is a 4.4% Lemondrop. And let's see what this one's like.
So this is just a standard pale ale.
Yep.
With Lemondrop hop only.
That is really dry and bitter.
It's got a massive dry finish to it.
That's not unlike the finish to a couple of the sours we had.
No, it's not, but it's not sour. It's got that bitter edge to it. There's some earthiness in there as well that comes through. You get a little bit of that on the nose as well. It's quite what you'd probably call quite a traditional nose on it.
Oh yeah, because it hasn't got waves of lemon, floral, citrusy. It's got none of that going on. I think, to all intents and purposes, it is a very traditional beer, but it's very traditional beer made very well.
Yeah. Now we're going to be doing 3 of these tonight, aren't we? They're all pale ales, and as far as we're aware, the only difference is the hop that's in them as far as the ingredients are concerned. So it's going to be quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be. We're going to do side by side, so we'll do one after the other. We'll see what it's like. But yeah, I think it'll be quite interesting, actually.
Yeah. And you mentioned they were limited edition. I mean, this one is... There's only 396 bottles of this.
Yeah.
So they are fairly limited as well.
Yeah, that is properly limited. So thank you very much to Shane.
Yeah, Shane Swindells.
Shane Swindells at Cheshire Brewhouse. And just as for those of you who are recent listeners or can't remember, we have featured some beers from Cheshire Brewhouse before, including the Govinda, which was one of their heritage beers.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed them so much, I did buy a case on the way home of the 4 beers we've done on the show.
Yeah.
So, we've been sending them. We were very grateful for being sent them. And then I went and bought a load.
But that Govinda was incredible. I mean, we both said at the time how good that was in terms of the beer it was.
We got it in for a tasting at work. And it went. There was none of it left over. Everyone really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that's one to keep your eye out for if it's released again.
If you see it, and I definitely would love to have that on cask.
I'm pretty sure Shane does that as an annual release. So it might be coming up again.
Okay, cool. Keep an eye out for that then.
Yeah. So what have you been up to, mate, since last show?
Well, I had a few things go on, but I'll just give a few highlights. So since we last recorded, I went to the soft launch of the 5 Points tap room at the Pembury Tavern, which has been taken over. I went there in December with Michelle around Christmas time, and it was looking from the outside. It's a lovely building, but inside it was looking very tired. It looked like a bit of a 70s social club. They've given it a bit of a tidy up. They haven't tried to go all industrial, urban chic kind of thing. They haven't tried to make it look like a tap room. It just looks like a nice pub. Plenty of space inside, and they had their core range on. So I dived in quite naturally on the railway porter and cask.
As you do.
And tasted fantastic. I also finished on the railway porter that evening as well. And,
did you drink anything else in between, or was it just pints of railway porter?
No. I had the XPA, the Pale Ale, the IPA. I tried it. Basically, I went for the whole core range, but just bookended with the railway porter. So thank you very much to Rebecca at 5 Points for the invite, and also met up with Matt, Half Pint Gent, friend of the show and friend of ours outside of the show as well. And so he's now finished at West Berkshire and off to ELB in East London. So. Hopefully he'll have a good time there, and good luck to him.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure he'll do as well as he did at West Berkshire.
Oh, I'm sure he will. He sure will. We met in the Dub actually at Hackney Broadway, and they had free ELB on there. And I have to admit, the cask was tasting fantastic. The Pale Ale.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the other one was, but they were tasting really good. The Dub is a really nice pub actually. It's not necessarily up your street. Belgian beer is their speciality, but the cask range was good. And I finished off in there with a Timmy Taylor's Landlord.
Well, sounds like your perfect venue.
Timmy Taylor Landlord.
And Timmy Taylor's.
And then I went to a place that had railway porter and cask.
The perfect evening.
I'd say win.
Yeah.
And the day after, not having had enough booze on the Tuesday night, we had a work beer tasting. So cohort, colleague and creative director Clayton helps me out with these. And we had Chris Hall come in from the bottle shop. And he presented 6 beers from California. And that was the theme of the evening. He talked through cold chain, what the bottle shop do, and a bit about the beers as well. We did have a couple of sours in there. But my favourite beer of the evening was Left Hand Brewing Hop Juice, a 10% triple IPA. And it was tasting superb, I have to admit. It was right up there with some of the really good triple IPAs I've had. Really nice, wasn't cloying, wasn't overly sweet, felt nicely in balance, dangerously drinkable at 10% as well. So that was a very enjoyable evening. We had a really good turnout at work, and we're already planning, hopefully squeezing in one more tasting at work before the end of the year, keep the momentum going. We had a lot of newbies as well. Yeah. So it was really good fun. And but last but not least, a couple of days ago from when we were recording, September's bottle share.
Or October's even.
Are we October?
Yeah.
I'm going to go October then. Are we? Oh, blimey, it's dark. It's autumn and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it was October's bottle share. It was one of those that was really close to the first of the month.
And there was 8 of us, but we did have some good beers.
Well, some questionable ones to start off with.
Yeah, it warmed up though.
It did, but the finish that we had on Tuesday was just incredible. We finished with 3 big bottles, so there were 3 750ml bottles. So,
have you made a note of which ones we had?
I've
got them to hand.
The Wimbledon Triple X K, is it?
Yeah.
2017 vintage ale.
So that was their Belgium-inspired beer.
I got no Belgian-y notes off of that.
No, nothing overt, was there?
No, I just got a really, really good vintage beer. Lots of sort of like caramel and toffee notes going on in there. That was just really, really drinkable. And then we had a Cloudwater barrel-aged Saison.
Yeah, barrel-aged Brut. Saison.
And this had been barrel aged in red wine barrels as well. And despite the nose maybe not being something I would go for, the flavour on it was just incredible. It was so soft and smooth and just so drinkable. It was really, really good.
I'm just going to read out the official description because it's such a mesh. It's such a mess. So the barrel aged Saison Brut, fermented with Saison and champagne yeast, aged in red wine barrels for 21 months, dry hopped with Galaxy in Ecuador before being bottled in January 2018. So we had it 10 months later.
Yeah.
Re-fermented in the bottle with German Brettanomyces strain.
Wow, that beer is just going to keep changing, isn't it?
Yeah,
if you've got a bottle of that, that's just going to keep going.
That's just a...
Yeah.
Who thought of that? I mean, that's just a real mesh of ideas, isn't it? And so, well, I wonder if this will actually work. So, but yeah, it was really, really enjoyable, that one. And then we finished on what I think was the best one of the evening.
I have to agree that it was the best beer of the evening, even though it was the one that you bought.
It's been a while. I felt like a bit. I bought this in Arizona last year in the bottle shop I went to, the one which I really enjoyed and went back a couple of times there. And it's a beer from Boulevard Brewing Company. It's a Cabernet Cask Imperial Stout, coming in at a lowly 13.2%. And again, this one. So just to give a bit of an idea about this one, so it spent almost 2 years in oak barrels, but at first aged Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon before moving to Kentucky to finish on Jefferson's Reserve straight bourbon whiskey. And I have to admit, it felt a very layered kind of beer with like waves of flavour coming through. It was absolutely delicious. I have to admit, it was absolutely brilliant. It was really quite easy to drink. None of that. I don't know about you. I didn't get any of the alcohol burn.
No, it was so easy. It was so easy to drink, and like I say, so complex as well. I'm just going to have to read out my tasting notes that I put into Untapped on this, because this is just goes to show, I think, how complex a beer was. So I put chocolate, burnt vanilla and oak, complex, red fruits up front, leading to dark chocolate, bitter finish, hints of coffee and tannins, subtle boozy burn on the finish. It's just there was so much going on in that I was almost disappointed that we only got a fairly small pour.
Yeah,
even though there was 8 of us.
Yeah.
I'm glad there was only 8 of us though, because if that pour had been any smaller,
it would have been hard to get everything
Yeah.
going on. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just pleased because it's one of those things I'd saved and I thought it's coming up for a year when I went to Arizona. It's now time to pull it out, even though it has one of these dates which says another couple of years and probably would last even longer than that. Where it will probably change. I can't imagine it could actually get any better. So it just tasted fantastic. I thought.
I think if anything, it's just going to get softer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to get softer and smoother,
More mellow,
and you're going to start picking up more of those, maybe more of the chocolate notes in it than anything.
than the red wine and the bourbon. So yeah, I mean, we did have a few question ones early on and a bit suspect, but there was definitely 3 big finishes there.
Yes, yeah.
And it was
really
a bit return to bottles.
Yeah, there was 2 cans, 3
Yeah.
cans.
So we've had a few recently where the cans have definitely outweighed the bottles on the bottle share.
Yeah, I still don't think we've hit that utopia of a can-only bottle share yet.
Yeah.
We've come close a couple of
Yeah.
times, and I think it will happen at some point, but it was nice to see a bit of a return to actual bottles.
I think while we have any of our resident home brewers turning up, we won't hit the cans.
No.
Because they will always bring
Because they'll
bottles.
always bring bottles, yeah.
So did you get? Is there any other noticeable beers that you've had in the last couple of weeks? At
The weekend I treated myself to a couple of beers from the back of my cellar. So I pulled out last year's Buxton and Omnipolo's Yellow Belly and Jello Belly Sunday as well, to do kind of side by side tasting.
Purely for scientific purposes, then.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been slowly revisiting some of the beers in the back of my cellar, because I've got to the point where I'm like, I've got to stop stockpiling this stuff, because otherwise I'm going to get to a point where I'm never going to drink it all.
Try telling Ginger Daniels that one.
So went in for last year's Yellow Bellies, and out of the 2, actually found that the Sunday had aged better than the standard version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the bourbon notes were much softer. It was lending itself to a much easier drink, allowing a lot more of the biscuit and the peanut flavours to come through in it. Whereas the standard Yellow Belly still feels quite harsh around the edges.
Okay.
And hasn't really begun to
Hasn't started to
soften.
mellow out
It's
and
still got
soften.
the flavours in there.
Yeah.
So I think the last time I went back and revisited some, I did some from 2016, and I said I thought that the flavours had actually started to die off. So it's almost a case of trying to find, I think, where the sweet spot is with Yellow Belly, to still get the flavours, but so that it's not kind of got that roughness around the edge.
Yeah, so you lose the harshness where you haven't got with the Sunday version.
Yeah. So no. Apart from that, it's just it's actually been fairly quiet since the last time we recorded.
Okay, fairly confident that the next time we have a Beery Adventures conversation, the roles might be reversed, Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to have quite a bit to talk about. I think.
Yeah.
As people would have listened to this, I would have made my triumphant return to Indie Man. So yeah, there'll be lots for me to talk about, I think.
Well, that should cover that one off. So what's your final thoughts on the Lemondrop that we both drained?
Really enjoyable, really drinkable. Would have really liked to have tried a cask version of that. I know that's Cheshire Brewhouse basically specialise in cask and sort of like bottle conditioned beers as well, so I can imagine the cask version of that, if there is one, just softening that dryness and softening that sharpness.
I wouldn't want it to be too.
No, I'd still want
rounded.
sharpness. I mean, I've literally just taken my last mouthful and it's properly drying my mouth out.
I would still like to have
speak.
those sharp points of reference that the bottle version has got. I think it's really nice. I think it's just really well balanced. I didn't find it overpowering in any part of it apart from the dryness and bitterness, but however, I quite like that anyway. Some people may find it a little bit too much, but you just carry on drinking and in the end it goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've got another one coming up now. What's this one? So, again, another limited edition.
Triumphant return for the Sonic Screwdriver bottle opener there as well. Cheshire Brewhouse limited edition, El Dorado this time.
Okay.
Very similar ABV, 4.5% on this one. Again, these aren't hops that I know too much about, but they're using.
No, the next one is.
Yes.
But these two, not so much. I've heard of them both before.
Yeah. I've definitely had beers with them in both before, but not so often, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not something that would spring to mind. So it's quite nice because I'm not really pre-programmed for what I might be getting.
No, we're going in quite raw, aren't we? God, you get the bitterness straight away on that one. Right up front.
Yeah, it's still got that earthy quality. I wouldn't say it's got as much of the... it's not as light in the flavour.
No.
This has got more going on, but I can't quite pick it out at the moment.
No, I think it's maybe a little cold. That's straight out of the fridge. Got to be careful not to just neck that one because that's got the level of bitterness that I absolutely love in a beer.
And lovely bit of head retention in the bottom as well. And saying that they do them, I don't actually think they're actually secondary fermentation in the bottle. I don't think there's actually any yeast in the bottle. So although it feels like a real ale in a bottle kind of thing, I don't think they do. It has the gunk in it.
Yeah, because we're not having to pour these carefully, are they?
No.
Oh, and they're coming out pretty much.
Yeah, there's a slight
clear,
ever so slight haze, but that is because I'm taking it straight from the fridge.
Yeah.
On that note, I'll get the next one ready.
Okay.
Just so that.
So the next one's Cascade.
Cascade.
So a hop that we're probably more familiar with. In terms of the beers that we drink. So this one, again, limited edition of how many bottles is?
I think this might be 783.
Okay, so it's a few more of this one.
That's barely limited at all.
Yeah. And what is it on the last one?
And on the last one, 418.
Okay, so must have had more of a more of a yield of
the hops.
Beer.
Yeah. So first taste was very nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let mine warm while I rabbit my way through the news, I reckon.
Okay, I'll probably finish mine by the time we got through this line.
I imagine so. So, first up, we got the news that cask beer sales are declining faster than beer overall. So, last week saw the annual release of the cask report. And the main news in that was that the cask beer market is down 6.8% in volume, according to moving annual total figures to July 2018. Figures also showed that while the overall on-trade beer market has declined by 1.6% in volume during the past 12 months, some categories are showing signs of growth, such as premium lager, which was up by 2.2%. I just want to pause there, and I'm just wondering, that lager statistic, I'm wondering if there's a couple of contributing factors to that.
Go on then.
One, we had an incredibly hot summer.
Yeah, and this was up to July.
Yeah.
The heat wave fairly much stopped.
Yep, and number two was the World Cup.
Yep.
As well. Surely both of those things together would have contributed to that massive, well, not massive, but that 2.2% upturn in lager sales.
It's got to be a contributory factor. Like I said, the hottest part, the heat wave proper finished by the end of July. All during the World Cup, we were fairly much having that heat wave.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's got to have had an impact, doesn't it?
And it has very much been the summer of lager, hasn't it?
It's definitely been summer of lager, your pale beers, maybe you want a bit of carbonation to quench the thirst and stuff. Even me, when I was going to in some of the pubs in London, which are my tried and tested ones with cask beers, there was a couple of times when I said, actually, do you know what, I just want something cold and fizzy.
Yeah.
But still want a little bit of flavour, so give me something like that.
Yeah.
I went for that. There was actually, the British Guild of Beer Writers did a cask talk over at Hammersmith recently, and I think they I haven't had a chance to read up on it, but I think there's a YouTube presentation by Pete Brown about it as well.
Oh, okay.
So I think that sort of ties it was tied into this one. I mean, this is fairly much this is the same headline every year, isn't it?
I think so, but I think this is more of a downturn this year in terms of cask sales. I mean, if you dig into it a little bit deeper, cask is still a large part of the market, with 55% of the overall on-trade ale category. So it is still taking, is the majority of kind of ales that are available in the pub. Declining cask is largely seen in more the traditional amber beers. But at the same time, golden beers are experiencing growth. So,
which would again tie into the lagers.
Yeah. Maybe
a bit cooler. People wanting something which they think will be first quenching during the summer and watching the World Cup when you don't really be thinking about your beer.
No, it kind of lends itself to the discussion we were having on the last show as well about people's perceptions of what real ale is.
Yeah.
It's real ale is the boring brown beer.
Yeah. That's what they nearly always show when they do something on the news.
Yeah.
Someone pouring that. They don't show them pouring a pint of golden, shooting a pint of brown.
But there's nothing in there that leapt out as me as being any more surprising than we've heard in previous years of the cask report.
Yeah, it's not a shock. It's a shame, but it's not a shock.
While we're talking cask, there was the announcement this week that
that cask sales are going to shoot up by 20%.
Yeah, Cloudwater are bringing back cask beer.
Yes.
Now this was part of a 2-part blog that they put out over a couple of days, which not only said that they were bringing back cask, but also went into some of the changes they're going to be making to their labelling. They're going to make things a little bit more clearer. They're bringing back some more of their seasonal stuff. They're going back to labelling beers as versions, because I think a lot of people have said they're finding it very difficult to keep track of what Cloudwater beers they've drunk.
Yeah.
And then within that, they made the announcement that they were going to start producing cask beer again, but were also very, very clear that they're only going to do that for a certain number of accounts that can. It sounded like they were essentially saying, you've got to prove to us that you know how to look after cask beer.
Yeah, so it's either going to be pubs they already know and trust, because there was a couple of people recommending places and they went back already sorted kind of thing, and then I think you recommended our home for the Essex bottle share,
the Ale House,
Ale House, because we know that they do look after their cask beer. So I think it's going to be that kind of. It's going to be places which they know and trust will deliver the product they want it to be delivered. Which, going back 2 years ago when they said they were pulling out, the main 2 reasons were it wasn't actually financially that viable. People weren't prepared to pay what cask was worth, and also they couldn't guarantee the end product.
Yeah,
and I presume they feel that the places they will work with them on the price and also on the delivery. So I mean, I think it's good. I mean, you could argue that Cloudwater coming back to do it. It's a nice shot in the arm. It's a nice bit of publicity for them. I always thought it was a shame that they stopped, but I understood the rationale. But it does give a bit of a boost to the market, though, that they're coming back. Because even if Cloudwater's cask volume isn't going to suddenly change the numbers.
No, it's not. And if they're only going to be working with a small number of accounts, then.
But if it gets people talking about cask in a positive light, who may not always be doing it because it's Cloudwater, that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah. Now I'm going to make maybe a little bit of a leap here in terms of on the last show we reported that Cloudwater's co-founder had left.
Are you doing some adding up here?
I am now. So he left, and then in the space between us putting out the last show and as we record this one tonight, they've announced that they're going back into cask.
Mm-hmm.
They've released 2 West Coast IPAs that are as clear as day.
Oh, you noticed that, did you, Steve?
Oh yeah. I noticed that, and they've also released an American Amber, and they've started doing some other styles, and I'm just wondering whether there's no link here or whether it's I'm just putting.
Let's be honest. There's got to be it's either a direct link, in so much as the previous bloke he had moved away from wanting to do that stuff, or it's a case of, well, they've moved on. It's like anything in any business, any office, any walk of life. You get a chance to suddenly take a bit of a reset.
Yeah.
And you can go, hang on, let's have a little bit of a look again. If we're going to have this change going on, let's do this as well. And maybe it's an indirect consequence of the co-founder,
yeah.
I think it was, moving on. So, I mean, I think they're all quite positive. I mean, I thought the labelling blog went on a bit too long, actually. Talking about the labels, it lost me.
There's a lot of detail there. Yeah.
But the general sense of it, the general gist of it, I thought was quite good. It feels like I don't want to say they're rolling back the last 2 years, because that almost sounds wrong as well. But it feels like a bit of a reset to when I first discovered Cloudwater and quite openly really enjoyed their beers and enjoyed what they were doing.
It was interesting though, because when they put out that first image that they were releasing this clear West Coast IPA, I think it was Matt Curtis who retweeted it and said whatever the date was the day that UK beer became clear again. And then I think brilliantly, two breweries that jumped on that straight away were Thornbridge and Marble, saying it never went away.
which is true.
Which I just thought was brilliant.
For the large part of their beers.
I'm very excited to try those two Cloudwater beers because we know how good they are at doing IPAs.
Yeah.
And we know how good they used to be when they used to do clear IPAs.
Yes.
So I'm very excited to now try their modern interpretation of a West Coast IPA.
West Coast IPA in Cascade. I'm up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, it feels like a bit of a reset for them. But also, maybe it's a reset. Maybe it's the juice bubble that's about to burst, and they're just moving with the times,
Or trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah,
could be one of the other. I don't think they're going to stop doing the juicy beers, and they're certainly
not why there's demand.
No, and also their juicy beers do lend themselves really well to their small beer range.
Yeah.
That's
where we've said that so many times, haven't we?
Work so well.
Yeah. So talking about resetting things, we got the news in the past week that obviously the Rainbow Project finished this year, and then there was an announcement it came from Siren initially saying that they were contacted by Left-Handed Giant, who are based down Bristol way.
They're one of the ones who did the crowdfunding last year as well, aren't they?
To say that, can we take it over? So there's actually a new Rainbow Project going to be running from next year. And today they announced the breweries that would now be involved in the new Rainbow Project. So this is going to run from... I think it's going to run from next year, and I think they've said they're going to do it for 2 years. 2 or 3 years that they're going to do it. So you've obviously got... They've not announced the international breweries yet, but the UK lineup is Left-Handed Giant, and some of these are going to come as no surprise to anyone on this. So you've got Left-Handed Giant, you've then got Burnt Mill, Daya, North, Track, Unity, and Verdant.
Okay. They all make one beer.
That's my concern with it.
Because I hadn't seen any of this. I'm not seeing much variety there.
I think we're going to see a move to a very juicy Rainbow Project next. So,
but
so
that sounds a bit like the Northern Powerhouse. The Northern Powerhouse is really juicy.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see who they're paired up with, though, and what influence that then has on the beers that they produce.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there won't be demand for it, and that they're all very good breweries, and there's a lot of fans of those breweries. But for me, it doesn't feel like there's enough differences.
No, but I think this week we've seen Verdant have released their first Imperial Stout as well. Which I was quite surprised to see. Because I don't think they've ever released anything that's not a pale or an IPA.
Not that I know of.
No.
Okay, but no, I mean it's an interesting idea that something that Siren had built up and had done for a number of years. But someone else wanted to pick it up, and Siren were happy to pass it over as well.
It's quite nice, isn't it? That it's kind of continuing
rather than just saying,
different format.
Well, actually, no, it's our toy. We've stopped playing with it. It's going in the cupboard.
Yeah,
they've actually said, yeah, go on then. Quite like that.
And I think it's great that it's almost like it's a second generation of the Rainbow Project.
Oh yeah, I mean these are breweries that over the last 18 months, a lot of people have had a lot of love for their beers.
Yes.
So regardless of what you and I might think, and we've tried a lot of the beers from these breweries anyway. So yeah, it does feel like it's okay. Well, the first wave of modern breweries have done their bit for that project. Here you go. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, be interesting.
It will be. But I should look forward to seeing what that produces next year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the Rainbow, I did really enjoy the Beernomicon podcast when they did the box and ran through the previous years.
But they didn't seem to rate any of this year's beers particularly highly, did they?
They found one or two that they enjoyed, but they didn't seem to be loving it. They weren't exactly weeping, but it was over at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you do want to listen to that, I thought it was really good. And they did mention some of the highlights over the years. And I found it really interesting because, as I've openly admitted before, Rainbow Project has by and large bypassed me over the years. So it was quite interesting to hear some of the beers, beers had come out of it.
Yeah, well, we'll link that through in the show notes.
Yeah.
So if people have missed that, they can click through and have a listen to
it.
it.
Yeah, if nothing else, you hear the boys bicker.
Which is what we love.
Which is what we love, more bickering.
Yeah. So staying on the Siren theme, news today that they're hinting at crowdfunding. They sent out a newsletter, and within that there was a piece that said, become part of the Siren story. Something big is happening this October. We're working on our plans for the coming years. It's an exciting time. We've identified some huge opportunities and laid all the groundwork to realise them. For the first time, we're inviting you to help us make it happen by owning a part of Siren. No further details at the moment, but that sounds to me like there's a crowdfunding
Oh, it sounds
opportunity
definitely
coming.
like it, and may also explain the end of the Rainbow project.
Possibly, yeah. And staying on the crowdfunding theme as well, London Beer Factory are going to be crowdfunding for a mobile call ship, which sounds hilarious, actually. Basically, what they want to do is they want to build a mobile call ship that they take all over the UK, and basically they just want the water that's in it to be infected by whatever bugs are in that part of the UK, and they're hoping that what will result is a series of beers that reflect the places where the bugs were collected from. Next up we've got, so this is going way back to episode 62, where we did the chat about mental health.
Oh yeah, with hop stuff.
In the industry. So the licensed trade charity are introducing a free training scheme to equip publicans with the ability to identify and help workers with mental health issues. Scheme's first of its kind and will launch with 2 mental health and wellbeing in the workplace sessions for managers, which will be held in London and the Midlands. That's all designed to tie in with World Mental Health Day, which is on the 10th of October, which I think as people listen to this would have already passed. But there will be more events during 2019 as well. The one-day events will teach managers about the most common mental health issues in the workplace and how to support workers showing symptoms of mental health problems. I mean, that sounds like a great initiative, doesn't it?
That's really positive.
Yeah.
That's really positive. Any steps anyone takes to make that so that people can just say, I'm not feeling right, but because it's in their head, there's still that stigma about it. I think it'd be brilliant. And anything which helps people identify it, both in themselves and in others, has got to be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And then just to finish, got a couple of new beer releases. So first up, Dark Star are launching a beer with Radio X DJs to raise money for Calm. So they've teamed up with Radio X DJs Ellis James and John Robbins to create a beer to celebrate the launch of their new book, The Holy Bible. The book, The Bible Could Have Been. All profits from the beer will be going to Calm, which is the campaign against living miserably, a charity Ellis and John have long supported. From what I understand, it's a session pale ale that's being released in cans. It's always good to see, again, things being done for charity in the beer world.
Yeah, interesting collaboration as well.
Yeah. And then finally, this is an interesting collaboration. This beer launched as we record today. It's launched in cans and a number of locations across the UK, and will be pouring, or was pouring, Indie Man. So hopefully by the time people hear this, I would have enjoyed this beer.
And we'll be telling them about it next time.
Yeah, so this is it's a Stone beer, and it's called Fellowship IPA. It's a collaboration between Stone, North Brewing Co., Magic Rock, Buxton and Indie Man themselves. And by all accounts, it's a blend of Transmission, Cannonball, Axe Edge and Stone IPA.
Fuck me.
I mean, that pretty much sounds like my ultimate beer.
Bloody hell.
So I'm going to need to find somewhere where I can get cans of that and buy them all, I think.
Train beer. On the way home.
Yeah. I think it's about 6.5% or something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be with a couple of those beers in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Axe Edge and Cannibal.
I'm very excited about potentially trying that.
Well, if you do, feel free to pick a can up for me. I'd be fascinated to try that.
And that's the end of the news, mate. So what are your final thoughts on beer?
It's just superbly drinkable.
It
I
is,
still
isn't it?
can't quite pitch how to describe the flavour. I have to admit, be openly honest there, I can say how it feels. I've got the dryness, the bitterness, and that something's really lingering, really pleasant, lingering, that makes me just want to have more of it. Unlike the first one where it was more the feeling that lingered, like the after bitterness and the dryness. This one's got a very definite flavour, but it's just sitting there. But I just want to go back for more. But I don't really know what to expect with El Dorado. I'll be honest.
No, I mean I agree with you there. There's lots of bitterness in there, and I'm loving that bitterness. For me, it's almost reminiscent of the sort of flavour that you might get from an amber ale or something a little bit darker.
Yeah, I can see where you're going to, because both beers looked identical.
Yeah,
in the glass, both of them had that very nice pale golden hue to it, without it looking like anything very trad in that sense of the word.
Yeah, but I mean, it's incredibly refreshing.
I mean, they're both really good. I mean, like I said, all I'm thinking of is how good they potentially be on cast. They feel like they're made for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, shall I crack open the third one?
Well, yeah. While you do that, let's a little bit of information about Cheshire Brewhouse, because we have, as you say, we have featured them before because Shane was good enough to send us some beers before. So they're based in Congleton in Cheshire. They're a 5 BBL microbrewery.
Okay, Sean.
Once again, no idea what that means in terms of what their output is. Why can't they just stick to one measurement?
Pints.
That's the third different measurement we've had now in as many shows and on beers. So head brewer and owner Shane Swindells comes from an engineering background, but decided he wanted to open up his own brewery, but used the skills from his engineering background to build all of the brewery equipment himself. So in terms of the brewery setup, it is completely unique to Cheshire Brewhouse.
Bloody hell, I never knew that.
No.
That's amazing.
Fascinating, isn't it?
That is fascinating. I mean, I've heard of bespoke breweries, because some of the places, the smaller breweries, when they get bespoke brewery set up to fit in the space they've got, don't they?
Yeah.
But not normally done by the person brewing the beer.
No, because I think we saw that when we went up to Wylam for the Crimbo Crawl. They said when they took us around the brewery there that's a very strange shaped building they've got there, and they had to have all the equipment designed to the shape of the building.
So they helped design it.
Yeah.
But this guy's designed,
Shane's built it himself.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a proper labour of love.
Yes, definitely,
isn't it? Yeah, and they so their predominance is around producing cask beers, and then the bottle conditioned beers that we're lucky enough to keep trying.
Yeah. So I'm pouring the 4.5% Cascade now, and as we said, this one's the 418 bottles.
Mm-hmm. And a hop that we're probably a little bit more familiar with because it's one of the C hops.
It's one of the C hops, isn't it?
Is it me, or is that looking a little bit darker than the previous
I was
two?
just going to say exactly that. That's definitely not quite as. It's got not quite such a sunny disposition,
I mean,
as it?
It's still a pale ale.
Yeah,
you can't.
Not
you can't
quite as
deny
sunny.
that. No.
You can tell it's unfined, to be honest.
Yes, yeah.
I think when you look at it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
A little bit more citrus on the nose there.
It's definitely for me a bit more floral and fruity on the palate as well.
A lot lighter,
and you haven't got that overt dryness and bitterness at the end either.
It's the bitterness is very, very subtle.
Yeah.
On that one. That could actually be the most drinkable of the three.
I think that is the most. I think that's going to be the most drinkable. And I think that would work for a lot of people, especially people who are fans of like the New England IPAs.
Yeah.
Because it's got that softness and that lightness of touch, whereas the first two felt more like your old school beers.
Just loads of bitterness in those, yeah.
But I mean, that's really good.
Yeah.
Any more facts about? I mean, that's a pretty good one. I have to admit, he built his own brewery.
Well, no, I'm finishing on that.
There's nowhere to go.
You can't better that. So while we enjoy this beer, let's get into this.
Hopinions, 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 Hopinions.
We asked, should you drink local just because it's local? 616 votes. Very close vote, this one as well. So 47% of people saying yes, 53% of people saying no. So hardly anything in this one.
No, not really.
And lots of comments.
There was lots of comments on this one, actually.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how much... I thought we'd get a few decent votes. I wasn't sure how much traction we'd get on the comments.
We got loads.
We got loads though, didn't we?
As always, what we're about to go through is just a selection of the comments that we've got. If you want to read them all, as I said previously, I think on the last show, there's a link to the poll in the show notes. You can click on that; it will take you back to the original tweet, and you can read all of the comments underneath. But let's dig in to some of these before we get onto our views on this, because I've got a feeling we're going to be fairly aligned on our views once again. So first up, Sean O'Reilly on Crulia. Local beer has to be good too, but I do drink local a lot of the time, largely because the pubs I go to focus on local breweries, even though they are free houses and could buy from anywhere. Beers from further afield are a treat though.
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, there probably a lot of people can empathise with that comment.
Yeah.
But, local pubs do sell local beers, but when something turns out from further afield, it's like, ooh.
But you've got to, and I think we'll get onto this very quickly, you've got to have beers from local breweries that you want to drink from.
Yeah.
So could you imagine living in Bury St Edmunds, for instance, and your only offer being stuff from Green King?
Which you get in loads of other places as well. But
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the thought that was going through my mind when I read that as well. But I think, I think the first half of the sentence, local beer has to be good too.
Yeah. So the next two kind of two sides of the coin really. So Joe Hill at Multiplex Rant says, no, there are Manchester breweries I love, and it's an added bonus that I can feel a bit of local pride as I drink, but there are also Manc breweries that I don't like, and their location is neither here nor there. I'm definitely a brewery loyalist, but location isn't really a factor. Flip side to that, from Justin Mason at 1970s Boy, friend of the show, Justin Mason, should I say. I voted yes, as it's essential to support your local breweries. They are part of your local community and provide a service that in most cases would be missed if not there. When there is a new beer on, or they have an event go to it, find out and get involved. Now, it's probably fair to say that Justin is a massive advocate of Essex breweries and beer from Essex.
Definitely. And I try to be. And I think there are some breweries in Essex doing some good stuff. And I, locally, I suppose, for where I am now, Billericay Brewing is probably the closest. I go to their tap room very regularly. I was up there on Saturday, and I think they put out some good quality beers. But if they put out really bad beers, wouldn't interest me at all, no matter if they were 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
So it goes back to what Sean said at the start, local beer has to be good too. And in Essex, we have a lot of breweries. We still don't, I still cry when I read some of the posts from other people when they're talking about, when Rachel's talking about Sussex.
Yeah. We've still not got those breweries innovating.
No, we haven't got the ones pushing the boundaries. We have Crouch Vale makes some really good beers. And they've been around for a long time now, and they've won awards as well. And they are still making those beers really well. I don't feel like they've then taken it somewhere else, or even tried.
Just carrying on doing the same thing.
Very well, and they could argue we know our market, and that's what keeps us going, and that's what we like doing. That's no problem at all. But for me, we've got a lot of those.
Yeah, and I wonder whether this next one. I wonder if Cask Theology is actually from Essex. Because he says, there might be a she, apologies there, they say. Just because it's local, well, I try local brews because they are local, but I don't exclusively drink them because sometimes they're crap.
Yeah. Then the following comment, the next two comments, again, similar thing. Voted no, but if it's a choice between two very similar beers, I want to support local. Especially as Northern Irish brewers are such a disadvantage to the rest of Europe with regards to the idiotic laws here. And I think we've talked about that, like the tap rooms not being able to sell the beer on premises and things like that. That's from Stephen O'Kane at Socrates9. And then from Sophie Grunwell at So Beer Blogger. If the beer is no good, then it's no good. However, it's important to support your local breweries as they're part of your community. They probably would appreciate feedback from their regulars. I'd agree with that. I think it's supporting the breweries through the local pubs. Two sort of go hand in hand a lot of the time for me, because not all local breweries you can rock up. and suddenly have one of their beers. I mean, what I would say is Leon C, they really are trying to start pushing it. They are bringing out beers which...
And I've enjoyed their beers.
Yeah. So I recommended the Legra Pale.
Yeah.
You went to the Milsham Tap in Chelmsford and you agreed that it, for 3.8%, ticked the boxes, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I think they're one of the ones who are maybe seeing that... Okay, well, they've still got a good cask range. Good traditional cask range, some really nice beers in there. But we'll do a few keg beers at the same time. We'll see what we can push out here.
Yeah.
And they've got the SS9 Impy Stout as well, which is quality, that is. It's very drinkable. You probably shouldn't try that, Steve.
Do you think Essex just need a brewery to start canning? Is it as simple as that?
No, we haven't got to that stage yet. We haven't got to canning
Not
stage.
440 mils from an Essex brewery.
There's definitely some
wraparound label.
There's definitely some breweries in Essex I don't want 440 mils of their beer. So yeah. So what is your thinking anyway, Steve?
Largely aligned to what a lot of the people have said so far in terms of the no factor. I mean, unfortunately, I do actively tend to avoid any beers that I see from local breweries. I would much rather. So if we're in the Ale House in Chelmsford, they do try to support local and they do try to have a few.
To be fair, though, you think they probably have 2 or 3 out of their 12 are usually local?
Yeah.
But definitely on Tuesday night, they had 2 or 3 out.
Yeah, and I will pass them by for other national, more well-known offerings.
I didn't have any from local.
No.
And what I would say is though, when I go to the local beer festivals, I definitely go for the local a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But no, I'm probably the same when I'm in the Ale House. But where I live, if I go to say, well, sadly before the Green King pub had the fire, they had started to bring in a few local beers. I would sometimes have that because they were a Green King pub, so I was still thinking I'm having a better option anyway.
Yeah.
And the other pub near me, the White Hart, they usually have 2 or 3 cask ales on. They will usually, one of those will normally be local, so I will give it a go. It's not often I've always gone back to have a second one of it though.
But you generally tend, where we are in our part of the country, you generally tend to know what you're going to get.
Oh yeah.
You're not going
to
to get anything that's groundbreaking.
No one's surprising us, and that's probably it. Actually, no one is surprising us. Like I said, Leon C, off the top of my head, is probably the exception with what they're doing. Like I said, Billy Ricky Brewing are doing some good, quite traditional, quality stuff. But I would say Leon C for me in our area, and let's say we are talking local here, so that we are both in this area, are the ones who are pushing it a bit more than your average Essex brewer.
I mean, let's be honest, there are no Essex breweries producing brute IPAs, are there?
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't need them all to suddenly go on the
or
on the
a New
trend.
England IPA.
No,
none. It seems to be that they produce what they know their market is going to drink.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that because that's obviously a good business model. Is that it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
But in terms of this question, I wouldn't drink local just because
it's local. No, but if I found something that's local that I can get hold of and I can champion, then I'm right on top of what Justin has said.
Agree. If there was something that I thought was the best thing I've ever drunk from a local brewery, I would be all over.
Yeah, and there are ones popping up, and we know that Chelmsford has one, and I haven't had a chance to try many from them. But they turn out to be doing some really nice beers that we're like, I'll champion them. I'll be quite happy to see them turn up in places I go to. It's not a problem, but at the moment, for me locally, we don't really have them. So my answer would have been a no on that one.
Yeah, as I said, I thought we were going to be fairly aligned on this one. Let's dig into some more of the comments. So Brad White at White, good quality beer is the main driver. Engagement with potential customers is second. Poor customer service or arsey social media attitudes can be a real turn off when it comes to buying beer, regardless of how good it is. I mean, he took that off on a slightly different tangent there.
It sounds like he's had a bad experience.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad's had a bad experience.
Yeah, on social media.
Yeah, with someone. I mean, well, I'd say that's probably something else. I don't think the Essex Brewers really go big on social media, do they?
I think they're on there. Occasionally, Crouch Vale can be a bit ranty.
Yeah.
I I can't recall.
Brentwood are on there.
Yeah.
But not much comes out.
No.
But, yeah, no, it's everything that. But yeah, I would say
Not
Brad.
really embracing it.
No, I think Brad's had a bad experience there.
Yeah. Mark Johnson at Mark and Johnson. No, not anymore. The 7 or 8 breweries closest to me geographically range from average to poor, which says a lot about the number of breweries out there when the likes of Track, Squawk, Torside, etc. aren't exactly a million miles away. I used to support a couple of the local ones loyally around 2010, but now I have no need to, especially as I've had a couple of disappointing conversations with them regarding quality issues. Now a brewery will have my respect based on the beer regardless of where they are.
Can't argue with that.
No, I think that's what quite a lot of people are saying. It comes down to quality here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
More than anything.
You're spending
else.
your money.
Yeah.
You're spending let's back down to basics. We try to spend our money on stuff we like.
Yeah.
To take away what we'd class as the essentials, where we have to pay for our utilities, etc., etc. I would still consider, when you're buying a pint of beer, a bottle of beer, a can of beer, half a pint, a third, it's a luxury. Why would I want to spend it on something that I'm not going to enjoy?
Yeah. And I think that's what, again, everything that we're saying here is what people have said as they've fed back to us here. So the owl lady says, no, my local pubs are not good, very not good. I'd rather stay in. The local beer is okay. If local purveyors, producers aren't welcoming, don't brew well, I'm not wasting my money. However, I believe it's important to shop or drink indie, whether that be online or in person.
Okay, slightly different tangent as well. But, again, personal opinion. Again, if you haven't got it on the doorstep and the beers aren't very good and the pubs aren't very good, then it's very hard to drink local, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Lou on Brew says, I desperately try to support local breweries, but if they're not good, they're not good. Although my favourite brewery is brewed over 4,600 miles away, I always try to drink local when I'm away. That's the joy of travelling. I mean, that's something different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Lou's a massive US beer fan, isn't she?
Yeah.
And her and her husband do go over quite a lot. They tie into their love of American football, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I suppose once you've done your 4,600 miles, then you are drinking local beer. And I certainly found when I went to Arizona that everywhere I went to had a beer from somewhere local.
Yeah. Well, if I recall that, take that back to like a personal experience, when I used to spend a lot of time in Leeds with my previous job, I was like the proverbial pig in shit up there. I really was.
Oh yeah.
But that magical day when I realised that Leeds was only 20 minutes from Huddersfield on a train meant that I could always get as much cannonball in my face as I needed to.
In the only measure they served?
In pints, because it only comes in pints and cans. So I've got Camel Nate at NateDog27. If I only drank Norfolk beer, I'd get bored very quickly. Almost most Norfolk beer isn't to my tastes. I do, however, mostly drink UK beer because why bother importing with a massive carbon footprint when we've got such great homemade beers?
Cool comment. Nothing wrong with that, and he's not entirely wrong either, is he?
No. And then finally, from our friends at the Men Behaving Badly podcast, MBB podcast. If you're choosing between two good beers and one is local, then I'd probably give the advantage to the local beer, but agree with all the other comments here. If it's crap, then it's crap, wherever it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to have been the general feeling. What I found weird is the voting was quite close, but the comments were definitely veering towards the side of, well, if it's rubbish, it's rubbish.
Well, there was no grey with this one.
No.
People were very much black or white with this one. It was either yes or no.
Yeah. So... no, again, obviously, thank you for all the comments and stuff. I must think if you're spending your money, you should spend it on what you like.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And just going back to that final comment as well, the lads from Men Behaving Badly are doing a great job of trying to champion local stuff to them.
Yeah, because they've done one
well.
for the local brewing Market Harbour on the farm, haven't they?
Yeah, Braybrook.
Yeah, I've just started listening to that one.
Yeah.
And I think they really do want to sort of do their focus on that. And I like that. It's like when I listen to Beers Around Frontiers, I like it when they talk about the beers in and around the Warwickshire area because it's completely alien to me.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
That's what I love about all well,
regional.
almost all of the other beer podcasts at the moment. So you've got Sipping Forecast when
That new one.
when they're all about the northeast. You've got Men Behaving Badly who are focusing on East Midlands. You've got Beers Without Frontiers who are focusing on West Midlands and Warwickshire, and then you've got Chef Hopcast who are focusing on the Sheffield area.
It's brilliant because it expands my knowledge of their local areas.
And it's great to listen to as well. It's great to listen to how passionate they are about things.
Yeah, about their areas. I mean, I would love to do an Essex showcase.
Yeah, let's not rush into that one though.
No, not just yet.
But if as you say, if people still want to get involved in that particular discussion, you can use the hashtag Hopinions. Continue to share your thoughts on it, and you may very well find yourself in the next part of the show.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
We've got loads of comments here again to go through.
Okay.
Loads of
Before
feedback.
we dive into the vast amount of comments we appear to have, how's the Cascade going?
I've got to say, I'm not enjoying it as much as the first two.
Okay.
It's softer.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to drink. It's missing the bitterness that was in those first two for me. And had I known this was this soft, I would have done it first because I think it might have suffered from the bitterness of the first two that we've had washing over our palates.
I mean, to be fair, there's no way we could know because there's no descriptions anyway, unless you were more of an expert on the hop profiles. However, I'm starting to get the bitterness.
Really?
Yeah, nowhere near as sharp as the first two, nowhere near as pronounced as the first two, but I'm starting to get that through. So the softness of the fruit flavours has sort of died off a little bit for me, and I'm getting a bit more of the traditional bitterness coming through.
It's very subtle. For
Oh
me.
yeah, I mean, yes, in hindsight, if you'd done that one first, or even maybe put it in the middle as a bit of a counterpoint to both of them,
Yeah.
but it has potentially suffered. But I think it's still a very enjoyable beer. But I would probably pitch up and say, out of the three single hop, the El Dorado's probably just edged it for me.
I would agree 100% with you. I that was one I enjoyed the most because of the bitterness.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting to see the difference that changing a single ingredient in a process makes between.
But you could still get the similarities. There was still the backbone was still there, the foundation. Yeah.
There was that was the one thing that stood out across all three of them was that kind of earthiness. There was a light citrus feel across them all. How that represented itself in terms of bitterness and dryness changed from beer to beer as well. But no, I mean, thoroughly enjoyable.
What I would say, and again, this is now, I've had quite a few beers from them now, all again in the bottles. Incredibly well brewed beers. Really well balanced. What you're expecting to get, you're getting. They just feel. I do feel at some point we need to visit.
Without
Somehow
doubt,
we need to find a way of factoring in a visit there. Just talk to him. Look at the kit.
Look at that one of a kind kit that he's built. Yeah.
So ironically, we're going to do bittering Englanders with a New England IPA.
Yeah.
Probably should have been the El Dorado, really.
It should have been. I mean, so this is cool. This one is The Revolution Will Not Be Televised.
Yeah, and it's got a very sort of 70s
psychedelic
sort of feel to the label and stuff.
Okay, well, while you're pouring that, let's get into a couple of these before we take
this is a bit live, isn't
a
it?
taste of it. So first up, from James at Gavin Barron. After listening to Hopinions 71, I'll be suitably attired, to which he had posted a picture of a t-shirt that he had mocked up that said on the front of it, "Too much of that James geezer," which I think was a comment from Paul at UNRCD, who has also made a comment. Great show as always, and decided to pop into M&S for lunch and had to purchase all 4 new Michela beers and both Bear Republic ones, which had on them best before dates of July 19. So if we're assuming that there's a year on those,
they've come over very
they
fresh.
are super fresh right now.
And I did know, I popped into M&S to pick some lunch up today, one of the bigger ones in the city, and I did notice they were trumpeting their 5 years winning the Supermarket Beer Retailer of the Year award as well.
Oh, okay.
They had a big one of these 6-foot poster things.
Yeah.
So they had their shelf range, and it did have the Bear Republic, the McKellar beers and stuff. It had some beers in the fridge as well. So they are letting people know that they do beer.
If only I was going somewhere at the weekend where I needed to go past an M&S to get some train beers.
If only, hey.
If only. Let's try this beer if we can get through the
If we can get
massive
through,
head that
yeah.
you've poured.
So for anyone who listens to the Men Behaving Badly, I think this is probably a 3-finger
It's
head.
easily a 3-finger head.
It's definitely fruity on the nose.
It is,
I
yeah.
can smell it when I was pouring it, to be honest.
I mean, it's only got a little bit of haze to it.
It's
as well.
it's hazy rather than juice, isn't it? Cool, that's stingy.
Okay, that's the bitterest New England IPA I've ever had, which is not a bad thing.
And you said I could have the other bottle.
Yeah, I've changed my mind.
Yeah, I thought that might happen.
Yeah, we might be sharing that.
See,
one after the show.
I was confident that this would be a New England IPA you would like.
That's actually really tasty.
I was confident about that.
That's got a real, like I say, it's a real stinging bitterness.
Yeah, but it's got. I mean, the carbonation is lovely. Very natural carbonation to it. Nothing forced about that at all.
So Mark from at Kelfired, Martin, I can't believe you didn't put Hanson's in front of him. Is that a type of sour beer?
Yes, I think, I think I was trying. Because obviously, what I was trying to do was to bring you on a sour journey, not reinforce your opinion of sours.
Okay.
So maybe when we do sours part 2,
I was going to say you want it to become an annual thing, don't you?
I think we can do a continuation of your journey because my ultimate goal is to get you into Cantillon.
We'll see.
That's my goal.
In time. He also went on to say, please, in capital letters, stop calling the shop Tesco's. It's Tesco. Fantastic show, guys. #opinion. I've always called it Tesco's.
Same, yeah.
Just like I call Asda's.
Oh, yeah. No, I call it Asda.
I call it Asda's.
No.
I think is that because Morrison's and Sainsbury's automatically have an S on the end of them?
And then you just add it onto the other things.
I think we've already dedicated far too much time to discussing whether there should be an S on the end of supermarket or not.
Yep.
Adam Johnson at Maybe Not a Fad. Great podcast, thanks for the mention. More than happy to post Steve a can of Breakfast Club as they are plentiful in the bigger Tesco's here in the north. And I think that's the blueberry and maple.
Oh, the blueberry maple muffin stout. Waffle pancake.
Yeah. Thanks for the offer, Adam. It's fine. I'll be quite happy if I find it. I find it. I'm not rushing out there for it. We then got some feedback from the Victoria Inn.
So just finished the sour episode, and thanks for your kind words regarding the pub. See you both soon, hopefully. I'll always be trying to get up there. It's just because it's not as close as it once was, unfortunately. But just to reiterate, thank you very much for letting us take over half the beer garden.
Yeah, it was, and that was a fantastic afternoon.
Yeah.
It really was. So Michael McCall at Lebowski 49. I promptly headed to Swansea Day after listening to that podcast. Nice timing on a sour podcast. Now I didn't realise that at the time that when we released the Sour Face show,
It was about 2 days before Swansea Day.
Yeah, and I didn't. I'm still struggling to understand why there's a whole day named after Swansea. And what has Swansea ever been?
What's
famous?
Swansea ever done?
What's it ever done? What's it ever been famous for in regards to beer? Richard Swindells at Rich Swin. Good show it is too. Listening to it has made me change my mind and give sours a go, starting with Florida Vice. This could be the beginning or end of the journey. Now that's obviously the new Thornbridge beer that's available in cans in Tesco.
Yeah,
Mark.
I reckon
Tesco.
that will be the start of a journey. I don't think I've had the Florida Vice, but I've had their other Vice beer, the one now Versa, which is sold in spoons because they can no longer get beer from outside of the UK, and that's in there. So I've had that one a few times, and I think it'll be it's quite a gentle start, that one. I think you'll enjoy it. So
well, I have enjoyed it. I've had a few cans of that already, and I do like it. I think it's a perfect gateway beer.
Yes.
It's a gateway sour because it's got that raspberry flavour to it as well. So essentially, it's like you're drinking raspberry
It's
juice.
it's a wheat beer with the raspberry to sort of brings down that wheat and gives that little bit of tartness, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So no, I think I will look for. Actually, do you know what, Richard? Let us know how the journey's going.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know what you're drinking and what the next one is. So Rob's Beer Odyssey at Rob's Beer Odyssey. Just listened to the Peakender episode and heard Thornbridge use different yeasts in cask and keg bottle can, explaining the noticeably different taste and body. My question to you is, how much should a beer be changed yet still be called by the same name? We understand that there will be constant small changes, hop, malt availability, quality, terroir, etc. I'm talking about larger changes, yeasts, permanent hop, water changes or brewing locations to name but a few. Working my way backwards through your catalogue slowly. Okay, firstly, thanks Rob for going back to older shows.
Yep.
And catching up. It's great to have you on board. It's great to have you getting involved. Secondly, your question is a really interesting one to me, and it's one that we've certainly had discussions about this.
Well, one particular beer.
and I think we're going to go into it again now. So yeah, how much can a beer be changed yet still be called by the same name?
Well, the obvious one for us, again, and this is fairly local, sticking on the theme, is Broadside.
Yeah,
So in cask, it's what, about 4.7?
4.6, 4.7.
Yeah. Lovely beer, really nice. The bottle's 6.2. It's 1.5% more, and I don't think bears much resemblance to the cask version.
I think there's hints of it in there. I think if you look on Untapped now, they've distinguished them by calling one of them strong
And one of them original or something like that.
Broadside,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the see, for me, Broadside, it just feels like, because it's the broadside, it's the side of the ship, isn't it? When you did the broadside, that's
Yeah.
where all the cannons came out of. It feels like it should be the big version of the beer.
But they had to dial it down for the cask market
Yeah.
because people weren't drinking a 6.2% cask beer.
Rename it, relaunch it, do a naming competition.
Do you think they should do that?
Yes, I do, because I don't. That for me, that one's. It's just. I think it's just confusing, because what about if you do get used to the cask version, and then you go and buy your 3 for £5 there.
And you see it in the supermarket, you get all excited.
If you drink 3 of them, and suddenly you're falling over because it's 6.2%.
Yeah. A more recent one for me is Buxton's Axe Edge, because we were saying that it's recently been released in cans, and we both felt as though it had lost a little bit of its bite.
Yeah.
And we had noted that they'd used oats, which we didn't think was in the original version.
Fairly confident it wasn't in the original.
And then they recently released it in bottles, and I sent you a picture of what it said on the
Yeah.
side of the bottle, which said something like reimagined our classic IPA reimagined for 2018. And I was like, well, hang on then. If you've changed it significantly, so it's developed, it's no longer Axe Edge.
No.
It's become something else. So stop selling it under Axe Edge.
Because I when we discussed that offline, because I had the 3 cans. Firstly, let's just say I did enjoy the 3 cans. I did them in one sitting.
Oh, so did I. I thoroughly enjoyed them.
Only thing missing was that bite.
And that's what
The
Axe
bite in
Edge
the
was
shop,
always. That's what I always went back to it for.
Yeah, and I can vividly remember, bearing in mind it was the end of a very long day in Newcastle. We ended up in a bar and we both ordered bottles of Axe Edge, and it was like, all right.
What
Quite,
you need.
it was quite a high ABV
Yeah.
palate reset, but it was absolutely perfect. Cut through everything else that we'd either ate or drunk during the day. And in my head, I feel like I can still picture and remember that, and that wasn't quite what I was getting. I think that's probably a little bit more subtle than something else, but I would say
than
the broadside.
Example, yeah.
But yeah, I probably wouldn't disagree with you. I think reimagined. That's why are you reimagining a beer that doesn't need reimagining?
No,
anyway?
because the original is pretty much perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
leave
it
it
was
alone.
perfect.
By all means, bring out another beer, because
They
that's what
call
they
it
did.
something else.
Didn't they bring out the Axe Edge X or the Axe X?
Yeah, yeah.
That I thought that was like the reimagined version anyway.
Yeah, which was essentially their New England
Yeah,
version of...
for me that's pretty much imagined.
Yeah.
But really good question. So Rob, if you've got a beer that you think ticks that box.
Let us know what it is, yeah.
And if anyone else does, you know how to do it. Get on here. Hashtag Bittering Lingardus.
Well, no. Hashtag opinions.
Do you not put Bittering Lingardus on there?
No, I don't search for that.
That's probably loads.
Too long.
Oh, is that why none of my stuff gets read out?
Probably, yeah. Because you keep using the wrong hashtag.
Now I know.
God, get with the programme, man. Stephen O'Kane at Socrates9 regarding Rauch beer. Steve was pretty close on the last show with his pronunciation. Martin was a long way off. Thank you.
Bloody hell, I can't believe we're getting picked.
Thank you very much.
We're getting picked up on grammar and pronunciation.
Now pronounce Reinheitsgebot.
Yeah, I'm not trying it.
Reinheitsgebot?
Yeah, I'm still not trying it.
You're still not trying it?
No.
Okay. And then just to finish this off, Sean O'Reilly at Uncrulia, just listening to Sourface Opinion 71, heard the call to number crunch in action and I'm straight on it. A firkin is 9 imperial gallons or 72 pints. Therefore, Fuller's Pilot plant is producing 2,880 pints per brew.
That's all you had to say?
Most pubs take their beers in firkins, I believe.
There you go. 2,888 pounds. I can work with that.
So, Sean, if you could just now let us know what 5 BBL is in terms of pints, we'd really appreciate that as well.
That'd be really helpful, actually.
Yeah. How are you doing with the beer?
To be honest, I was getting into that discussion a bit too much, but I reckon I could just suck this, and I wouldn't. Right. So we know we've been told it's a New England IPA. It's not New England IPA as I recognise it. So I suppose if you were judging it on style, from what we know about the style, and let's face it, most of them do say the style is soft, very low bitterness, doesn't really have that sort of harshness to it. I think some people have probably gone too far, but if you're judging by style, and I think this was the first year that the style was actually judged at the Great American Beer Festival.
It was the first year it was recognised as a style. Yeah.
This probably wouldn't have qualified.
No, I don't think it would have done. I mean, it's. I've got to say, it's probably style-wise, it's the furthest thing away from a New England IPA that I've ever had.
Blind tasting, I wouldn't have said that was a New England IPA.
But I'm loving it. My palate is absolutely loving it because it is bitterness that just goes on forever.
It puts me in mind of the one that he did, the Loopy Toucan.
Yeah.
Which had a lot of those fruit flavours, but still with that nice bitterness going on in the background as well. Still had that bit of what I'd call that earthiness that you associate with the traditional side of a beer. But it's got bags of that fruit flavour coming out. So the fruity side is definitely there.
Yeah.
But it's balanced by the bitterness. Not so dry as the first two single hop beers.
It's not dry, but that bitterness is just sticking at the back of my mouth.
Just hangs, doesn't it?
It's just there.
I've got a feeling I'm not going to get the whole of the last bottle to myself.
I've got the feeling, no, that's going to be shared probably immediately after this.
What I should have done was drunk it in advance.
You should have done, yeah.
See, I was confident.
So while we're finishing this off, let's get in to Paul's question of the week.
Questions fill my head.
And we do actually have a question from Paul this week.
Oh, what? We're actually keeping on theme this time?
It's the first time he's got to look into his own segment for a couple of weeks. And he asked the question of what celebrity would you most like to have a pint with, and what would you buy them?
Oh, God. See, I never actually looked at the question this time. Have you thought about it already?
I haven't. I was just going to go with this just off the fly.
Okay, Paul McCartney.
What would you buy him? What would you like to sit down with Paul?
I would get him something from Mad Hatter.
Oh, okay.
I would keep it local for him.
I like the link that you're going
I would keep it local for him.
Yeah.
He's very proud of being Liverpool. Paul McCartney is my favourite artist. The Beatles are my favourite band. I would love to be able to have just even a 5-minute conversation with him, and but it probably wouldn't be the Tzatziki sour. Fairly confident it wouldn't be that one, because that's not my favourite sour. It's a really weird combination, that one. But I think I'd get something from Mad Hatter. I think you'd appreciate that.
It's a good call. A
few connotations from the 60s as well with the Mad Hatter bit. So yeah. That's what I would do.
Can I have a serious one and then a not so serious one?
Oh, go on. Well, it depends how good one of them is, where we give you a second chance.
Okay, well, my first one then, I'm going to go for probably staying with the musical theme. I would love to have a beer with Dave Grohl.
I was confident you were going to say that. That's not a million miles away from the conversation with Paul McCartney, because they're both big fans of each other, aren't they?
And I would probably have to go for like a proper classic American IPA with him.
Again, makes sense.
Just sit down and just choose that. Maybe even just go really obvious on this one and not even an IPA. Just go for like a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Just sit down.
Because you probably wouldn't be thinking about the beer anyway, would you?
No, because you'd just be chatting. My not so serious one would be Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I'd love to sit down and have a Steve Weiser with Stone Cold Steve Austin, because not even drink it, just smash cans together and pour it over my head with him. That would be ideal for me.
And have a gift created.
Yes, absolutely. But I've noticed with Paul, he asks us these questions, but he never gives his own answer.
No, I think everyone should challenge him to answer as well.
So the challenge is out there, Paul. We'd like to know who's your celebrity.
We need another section, Paul's answer to Paul's question of the week.
Oh, geez, we just keep adding sections to this thing. And then the other question from Richard Taylor at Rich Taylor 1608. Now, Rich is the bar manager at Victoria.
Yep.
And I love this question. It's really topical as well, really on point. With Indie Monsoon and London Craft Beer Festival, Beaverx just gone, plus Craft Beer Rising happening early next year, and many other festivals happened or happening, would you say we are going to become inundated with craft festivals in the same way that we have cask festivals?
Obviously, we do have a lot of cask festivals. Although I'd say apart from like the big regional ones, so let's take GBBF out of it. Yeah, St Albans is fairly well recognised. Manchester is obviously fairly well recognised.
So there's a Peterborough one as well.
Peterborough's a big one,
isn't it? Yeah.
So you've got a number of big cask beer festivals which are probably recognised outside of their local regions, whereas a lot of the other cask beer festivals really are local, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which I tend to try and go to as much as possible.
It's going back to that drink local thing, isn't it, again?
I see, look at us keeping on point all the time.
I know.
Brilliant.
It's like we plan this shit.
But with the craft festivals, they tend to be quite well known, even if you can't get to them. So, if I remember correctly, haven't we got, what's the one in Newcastle in half term?
Craft Beer Calling.
Yeah. So I know that's happening, but it's going to be a stretch for me to ever get to it. Unless I do some sort of planning for it.
Yeah. And there's Bristol and Edinburgh.
Bristol has its LCBF.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
It seems as though every major town has a craft beer festival now.
I don't think we're at peak craft beer festivals. My only thing is that we do get peak times.
Yeah.
Or peak months. So you do get a bit of a rush of them. And bearing in mind that most of these are held indoors, I'm not sure why we have to have them all within a couple of months of each other. It's not like they're holding them outdoors.
Because you can't even really blame the hops anymore on wanting to have the beers uber fresh. What with, the cryo hops and the developments that we've got in hops now, that freshness isn't necessarily a factor anymore. So you can actually just have really good beer all the time.
Yeah. Bit like, again, not so local. You can get your fruit and veg from the four corners of the world these days. I don't think we're at peak, but I wouldn't mind a bit of coordination on the calendar.
I'd like to see a bit more of that. I mean, again, we had the clash this year of Beaverx and Leeds International Beer Festival being on the same weekend. Thankfully, Indie Man's moved back into its October slot rather than sitting in September. But like you say, it does seem as though every month, generally, you tend to have one, maybe two craft beer festivals a month.
Yeah.
And it does. And
also,
they're not cheap to go to either.
That was going to be my last point. Unlike the cask beer festivals, craft tends, a bit like the beer prices, tends to come with a bit of a premium. I'm not making any judgments on that here. We've covered this off before. So if you get a few in a couple of months in the same month, and you add a little bit of travelling as well, it probably becomes a little bit out of your reach, to be honest. Whereas with the amount of cask beer festivals with them being so local, and they tend to be a lot cheaper to get in, regardless of whether you're a member or not. There's usually free sessions at some point during that. You don't get craft beer. There isn't a craft beer festival I know of where you can go from outside the door to inside the venue without paying some money?
No, you have to pay
Yeah,
entry.
I think generally because they tend to be run as private enterprises most of the time. There is a company behind it, unlike the cask ones, which tend to be backed by camera.
But just on that again, and going back to the calendar, if you think about it, you've got Craft Beer Calling, which is at the end of October, and then your next craft beer festival isn't until Craft Beer Rising,
Which is in February.
So you've actually got 4 months there,
Although
where there's nothing.
does make a bit of sense because you're into Christmas, into December. I would never host a work beer tasting because people have other commitments. January, I've tried, but they had this weird thing where people stop. I mean, to be honest, I did stop. I went to bed at midnight on New Year's Day and I had a break.
Started again at 7 o'clock on New Year's Day evening.
So, I can understand your December and January not being used. And then February always feels like a bit of a short month. People feel a bit poorer. So I can see that practical thing, but then I don't understand why we then have... It feels like, what's after Craft Beer Rising then?
The next big one?
Yeah. So that's February. What would you say is the next big craft beer festival? So we know about Leeds, LCBF. They're all later on in the year. They all come after the first half of the year. So so if anyone wants to let me know, please do. I think Liverpool has the Craft Beer Expo, which is right on the cusp of the end of June. But are there other ones? I mean, I don't know. I think for me, it's not so much there's too many... It's not for me there's too many craft beer festivals. For me, it's that they concertina.
That they're all at the same time. Yeah. Spread them out a bit. So we've got another beer to finish.
Cheers. So this is the Bugtown Brown, American Brown Ale. I think we're both quite excited about this because of the brown ale can be a much maligned and poorly done style, but the American brown ale tends to be where it shines.
I'm very excited about this.
And that was one of my favourites out of the Northern Powerhouse series. Was the more American influenced brown ale. So straight away, it's got a lovely chocolatey nose.
Oh, that's lovely. It's chocolate. There's dark sort of red fruits coming through on that. There's a citrus tinge to the edge of it. That's pretty much perfect. So
we've got for the bittering, we've got Bittering Pilgrim. For the aroma, we've got Summit and Cascade, and for the dryness, we've got Summit and Cascade. And that is absolutely delicious.
That's working really well, isn't it?
That is working really well. I'm glad it's a 500 we're sharing, not a 330 of that.
I am. It's a shame we're
sharing
it, to be honest. And I mean, that brings us to the end of it this week.
First of all, I have enjoyed all the beers.
Yes, again.
So again, brilliant that you can churn out these kind of beers, Shane. So thank you very much.
Yeah, really grateful.
And thank you for sending them down as well. Love your version of the New England IPA. Love the American Brown. We've already spoken about the single hops. What's coming up next, Steve?
Well, next time we are doing a show that is based on a question that we were asked quite a while back.
Quite some time ago.
This is just to prove that we do keep track of when people ask us or make suggestions for doing shows.
We just tried to find the right time.
Yeah. So this came from Roland Glue.
Yep.
At Has Been New Boy.
1/3 of the Steve and Roland Beer podcast.
Yeah, really. It's about time they started including Gary.
Yeah, I think if Gary was on Twitter, he'd have to definitely be
especially as they keep making him do those awkward shows where he's in a room
on his own.
Yeah. But Roland asked us a question which was around beers enjoyed versus those admired.
Yeah.
So we've kind of we looked at that and we said, well, what can we do around that? So we kind of gone for a bit of a revered beers.
Yeah.
So those beers that aren't necessarily your hype beers, but they're beers that sometimes fly a little bit under the radar, are sometimes a bit difficult to get hold of, can be a little bit rare, but are held in great esteem.
Yeah, high regard.
Yeah, for what they are.
So I'm not going to reveal it, but you've already shared with me what free beers you may be bringing with you.
Yeah, I crawled into the back of my cellar and had a look at what beers I thought would work well for that show. So I've got my 3 selected.
I could easily choose 3 beers. I just need to make sure that my better half is in agreement with me sharing them just for you. So, but I look forward to that. We've always liked that question. It was just finding the right place to do it. It wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have felt like during the summer would have done it any justice.
No, and it's definitely one of those questions where, and you'll see when we get to the show and my beers come out. Spoiler, they're dark.
Yeah. Shocker.
Yeah. But generally you don't... If we were going along the lines of revered PAL fresh beers, the only one you would probably be talking about is Pliny the Elder, which we're never going to get hold of for the show.
I know. I've still never had it.
Yeah. So, you're generally going to tend to lean towards the darker impy stouts, barley wines, vintage ales.
I think I need to put it on my wish list on Untappd.
I don't know. Maybe sours would probably also tick that box as well.
But I'm presuming you don't want me to pull out some more sours.
Mate, you can pull out whatever you want. You're bringing
Can
3
you
beers.
Can you never say that on air ever again?
I would try not to. As always, folks, if you want to get involved in anything that we've discussed this evening, you want to ask us a question, just use the hashtag Hopinions. We will find you and we will get you involved in the show.
That's been good fun.
That has been good fun.
Great beers.
We are going to very much retire to enjoy this American Brown Ale. Cheers, Shane, and cheers to our listeners.
Cheers.